Hey you, welcome back to the library. Get your ass in here and let's talk greatest hits. The original PlayStation was no stranger to success across a variety of topics, but none have been as polarizing as the greatest hits library. Not from a game perspective per se, but the actual branding. A lot of people just don't care for the bright green bar that identifies the subset. Between the two of us, I adore the damn thing. It gets right in your face and brings your attention towards it, especially on a wall full of black bar games. During a discussion on Game-Rave's Discord channel, it was theorized that the bright green would have been because nothing else at the time on the shelf carried green with it, at least not if properly faced out. As the Xbox came into its own against the PlayStation 2, Sony probably changed to red since no one was using that color at the time. Genesis was long gone. But with the original PlayStation still going strong at the time of the PS2, publishers had a question they'd have to answer. If their game was successful enough to demand further printing, would they continue with the original black label or swap over to green? The former would keep it looking sleek among the other new games, but the greatest hits banner would draw attention to it as well as offer a discounted price. These questions, among others, were what kept publishers' marketing departments up at night. Because they got to make that choice, Sony of America did not force the branding change, but there were stipulations for acquiring it. First, your game had to have been out for a minimum of a year, and second, had to have sold 150,000 copies. As the system continued to widen its customer base, this tally was raised to 250,000 units sold. For this episode of What If, I wanted to see just how different the retail walls would have been if Sony had forced publishers into the lineup. This goes beyond the number of games in the set, especially from a customer perspective and gamer reaction to what really sold well. For the sake of time, I limited the research to just the overall sales of each game 1 year after the final release of FIFA 2005. This allows for the 250,000 limit to act as a broad stroke for discussion. The most eye-opening fact at the front of the pack is the number of games that would have had to be added. With our self-imposed 250,000 quarantine, lifetime sales marker, over 150 more games would have been added forced in by Sony. The mind reels it would have been had Sony kept the 150,000 marker instead. Let's break down that number into something more digestible. 68 of those games, just shy of half, would have been sports games, the obvious one being Madden with 3 seasons selling well over 1.5 million copies each. Several other EA franchises all broke the million marker, with a surprise appearance by Knockout Kings in its sequel. Sports games aren't really a surprise to the subset though. Both EA and Sony flirted with sports re-releases with their 1997 era, but ultimately it looks like they preferred people buying the newest seasons at full retail value. Go figure. Wrestling games would have also had a bigger footprint with WWF Attitude and WCW NWO Thunder breaking into the million sellers. Shockingly, Acclaim's arcade derivative In Your House sneaks in near the bottom with 350,000 copies sold. These were probably left off the guest list due to all the chaos that was happening across the wrestling industry around the time. This included wrestlers leaving companies and various other issues that would have led licensing managers to drink themselves to death. A bigger surprise comes in the form of longbox games. Top Gun, Bases Loaded, Mortal Kombat 3, Gex, and Resident Evil are all on there. Here's where we can get into more granular reasoning for never releasing them. With Resident Evil, despite almost 2 million in sales, Capcom opted for a director's cut release, a follow-up I might add, that then almost added another 2 million sales to the series. Hence why that one went green and not the original. MK3's absence is more than likely thanks to Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Top Gun would have probably required renewing the license, so that was out of the question. The surprise here is actually with Gex. All 3 games in this series made it to the literal greener pastures, but sat quiet with the rebrand. Gex may have fallen into a similar licensing issue, but from a different angle. Besides Dana Gould's voiceovers, all 3 games were published by 3 different companies. Eidos had famously teased a collector's edition of Gex inside their 3-pack, but it was sadly never to be. Ironically, some things never catch on until long after their chances would have faded. Would you believe that one of the PlayStation's most sought-after subsets only had 1 game hit the greatest hits threshold? The original Lunar Silver Star Story was Working Design's only contender for the green stripe. It was also one of their earliest releases, which means if this game barely made the 250,000 sales of a lifetime, perhaps their other amazing releases really didn't fare too well at retail, which would explain Working Design's untimely demise into the early PS2 era. Thinking about it, their fan edition was probably their take on the green stripe. From a resurrection angle, it appears Midway could have found themselves some more retail marketing space. A handful of games from the House Smash TV build, including Gauntlet Legends and NFL Blitz 2000, made the cut. It's possible they were saving their publishing pennies for the future licensing deals as they try expanding their Jam brand onto more sports on the PlayStation and Xbox. Probably the biggest eye-opener from the research finally explains the existence of the PlayStation's most curious demo release, the Best Buy Greatest Hits demo. Among the 150 plus titles that made the grade, 7 of the 9 available Jam Pack demos released by Sony all sailed past the required sales. At its peak, Jam Pack Summer 2000 was just shy of being a million-unit seller. Think about that. A demo disc was a million seller. With those kind of stats, the experiment with Best Buy probably could have been a good idea, but was probably already too little too late at its release. In the end, the majority of releases that qualified, but were never published, almost all dealt with licensing issues, be it sports, movies, television, or otherwise. This more than likely prevented games viewed as inferior, but were really successful, from having a second shot at life. Of the tragic tales buried within the list are lost potential re-releases of Mortal Kombat Mythologies, Spice World of all things, Contra Legacy of War, Space Jam, and more. Even Masters of Terrakasi made it. For modern gamers, the idea of a branded greatest hits item is practically lost. With physical media disappearing from the entertainment shelves and the gaming industry cutting every corner they possibly can, the trend seems to be fading away. In its place are the Game of the Year editions and insanely discounted digital copies. With the PlayStation 4 currently sitting at just over 60 titles, compared to the PlayStation 1's 170-ish, the real question will be if the greatest hits subset survives the next hardware iteration. And there you go, guys. I gotta admit, that's not the right term. I was pleasantly shocked when I started doing this research. I did use, I think it's called Game-Rave. There was some site from years ago that tracked sales, but in trying to use them through archive.org, they were really, really super slow. And I didn't feel the need to go game by game for what was essentially just a hypothetical 10-minute video, hence the broad strokes with the 250,000 sales. I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of glad more companies didn't use the Greatest Hits logo, because that's that many less games I had to buy and even fewer possible variants from that. If there's a game you would have liked to have seen made the Greatest Hits list, what game would it be? And heck, for any system, be it Player's Choice, Greatest Hits, Platinum Hits, whatever you want. Hit the comment section down below. Be safe, wear your mask, get vaccinated. I'll see you guys later. Take care.